right, in this session, we are going to talk about making content as a creative professional. So quick background on how we got here. My name is Oren. I'm at Oren Meets World on social media. I'm a big short form and YouTube creator who talks specifically about branding, design, marketing, and creativity. And I started this mid-career. I started making content when I was 36. I was the VP of marketing at a toy company. And I started to learn better how content moved for the business and fast forward now where I'm a full-time creator. I work consultatively with businesses. I've turned into one of the premier voices inside the creative community about the future of content, what's happening in branding, and how both individuals and brands can express themselves through the new media we have and learn not to be afraid of it. So some quick context of why we're having this is that a lot of creatives are at a crossroads. They make creative work, but they don't really post it. Same thing with businesses. They do really interesting things, but they don't cover it. This applies to individual work you're doing at your job, your portfolio, the art you make, etc. But that first level is that you make it. And the second level is you actually put it out there in the world. You make content for your business, you begin to post your portfolio, etc. You'll notice this curve begins to go up because you begin to take advantage of the algorithm and the ripple effects that exist that allow anyone from their first post on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, to be able to get views. That is the magic of the time we're in, is these algorithms automatically give you attention. And if your content is good, from post one, you can get mass attention. Not everyone's goal, but amazing to know it's there. But the real fight comes between the second and the third columns that we have here. Optimized content for creative work, optimized content for businesses. What this means is that you're not saying, hey, I'm going to post my photography as it is. I'm going to post my portfolio as it is. I'm going to post the content I want to make. And I'm going to have expectations about who it should be shown to and what will happen with it. By embracing the optimized version, what actually is meant to work on the algorithms, what people want to consume at the end of the day, because that's how these social networks function, you begin to get this exponential curve of possibility of how many people your stuff can be shown through by just embracing the formats that work already. So a quick talk about why would any creative want to become a creator? And so first, there's two choices, right? If you're a non-creator creative, you typically have your job and your salary, and then a side hustle, often a service pipeline. If you're a designer, you might do side design work. You may have your own small brand. Same thing with photography, etc. And that job may be a creative job, it may not be. But then on the creator side, it becomes much more interesting. Because not only do you have your salary job, a lot of the times if you become good at creating content, that actually impacts your job. It gives you the ability to either get paid more to leverage it. And there are companies out there that now have like bounty programs or integrate creators in their company with marketing, or just allows you to move up in your career. But then it gives you all these other ways to both make money and get your art out there. You can get paid by the platform. So YouTube and TikTok will just reward you for posting. You can do affiliate content, so things like TikTok Shop, where you make content to promote brands and you get a percentage. People do very well doing this. You can get brand deals, and have brand deals pay you to make content. For instance, I am a creator on the Adobe team, and I work with Adobe creating content about their releases. And then also you gain awareness for your service pipeline, whether it's buying your art or your t-shirts or your brand or your design services. That happens from the content that you make. And this is important because almost everything in creative work is becoming content, is consumed as content. So what do I mean by this? I mean that if you are designing something, it's often designed to also be an ad on a social media platform, consumed on the same algorithms that content is on. If you're doing a shoot, a lookbook, a release, a campaign, its end result is in a tiny format, often on a phone. Even if you make stuff for out of home, you're designing for billboards, their purpose is actually to get shown and taken a photo of and DM'd to friends on social media, just like packaging, just like a product experience. Everything is becoming content. That's an important mind shift to think about as a creative. This applies to how we run companies too. The old way was thinking about you have a marketing budget and content is underneath that. Now it's you have a content budget and you have ads that promote that content. It's a very modern way of thinking about how everything is becoming content. And the creatives have a really major role in that. The more you know what you're doing in it, the better that it goes, the more in demand you are. So the modern portfolio used to be a website, and now it's involving social, and we call push mechanism. Push mechanism is your ability to say, I want something. I want people to have attention to this project. I want people to hire me for X or Y, your ability to get that in front of folks. And that could be an email list, a community, a broadcast channel on your social media, your ability to hit that button, Instagram stories, whatever it is, and say, I want attention on this thing as a call to action on it. And so for instance, my social media is my portfolio now. When I get hit up for a job, no one even asks for a resume. They know what it is that I do because they can scroll my social media feed. And I'm putting out videos every day. That is not the case. You do not have to do that much to do. So So here's your toolkit for what we call algorithm-friendly posting. So actually making things that people are going to watch because they're familiar with them and they work on social. So the anatomy of successful content, stuff that works. It starts with a hook, the first 3 seconds. What do you do to attract people to get into your content? This is usually a combination of what someone says, the first visual they present, and the first audio they hear. And the more interesting or compelling it is, the better. This is why you see so many people do things like breakdown campaigns or do spec work for things that people know, is because it has an ability to have a better hook. But you as a creative get to spend your creative vision on actually coming up with hooks that will make people want to watch. Then there is retention, what makes people stay through to the end of their content. There's this idea of sharing, that content that's shared between people gets promoted more, which means if it has value, because people share things that either have value or they have entertainment. So if it makes someone laugh, they might share it. Or if they say, hey, this will actually help me at work, or I want to hire this person, then they also may share it. At the lowest totem pole level of content is news. If you're just saying something that happened, that's the lowest level of content. Anyone can do it and can begin to get attention. A step above that, so it's called playbooks. Here's how someone did something. So if a new campaign was released, here's these techniques that they use inside of it. One level above that in its terms of its resonance is ideas. If I were to do something, I would do X as a common format. Then the last and probably the most impactful is action. Hey, I did this thing. It's interesting, it's engaging, and often here's a bit of how I did it. But for content to succeed, the biggest mistake people make is they think it's about them. What you want to promote, what your business is. Really, it's about entertainment and value. You can succeed with pure entertainment content that makes people laugh or is cinematic, that tells an amazing story, or value content that drives real change in people's lives or their businesses. And if you have both of those together, you have an amazing level of content success, but you can also succeed with either one. So quickly, let's hit on types of content that performs. What is modern media? What does it look like? What tools do you have at your disposal? So the first is quick hit videos. So an example here, you've seen these videos where someone is doing something and there's basically just simple text over it that's telling a story. These videos are typically 6 seconds to maybe 10 seconds. And the combination of visuals and a quick readable idea is a simple way people consume content and is an amazing tool to have in your toolkit. There's a creative I work with, a woman who basically posts one of these every day that has an idea or a reminder about like a branding principle she's done really well with. And there's green screen, the most common type of content I make, where you see someone floating in a corner and then telling the story of something that happened. And this could be how to art direct a campaign. It could be a breakdown of something that you worked on. It could be an idea. Like this one here is about luxury locations and the branding of the clubs that I saw when I did a vacation on the Amalfi Coast. Then there are vlogs, a combination of footage either with music or a voiceover that tells a story. Another great one. This is one I did also in Italy on that same trip, where I'm telling the story of the museums and places we're going. And there's talking head, where someone is sitting here much like I talk to you, maybe with a few graphic overlays, but they are the main star of the show. And then carousels, sequence of images designed to tell a story that if you don't want to be on camera or make video, the carousels perform really well both on TikTok and on Instagram and are still an amazing way to consume. But how do you make a plan for what you want to do as a creative to put yourself out there on? And the first thing is to leverage your toolkit. What is it that you do? And if you are a very visual person, then leaning into carousels and be like, how do I, in between 2 and 10 slides, tell an interesting story or show the background visually of things that I'm working on? If you're extroverted and you want to get out there on camera, then finding those things you want to talk about that are valuable and entertaining. Or if you want to tell visual stories and create vlogs or more intricate things, deciding on some of those subjects, but lean into what your strengths are. And your strengths can come from your actual skill set and then your personality. What is it that you are really into or passionate about? And how comfortable are you with some of these mediums? But all you need is one of the things I showed before to have an impact. One of the biggest things I think most creatives should understand is that as this becomes a new portfolio, it's not about having to become a creator or post every day and have this in the mix. It's about saying, hey, once a week or once a month, how do I tell a story about something that I'm working on so that it basically compounds over time, so that in 52 weeks, I have either 12 monthly posts that form the basis of my portfolio and what I was involved in and what I'm interested in, or 52 posts that begin to show not only am I filming that, but I also am beginning to develop a real acumen for how things move on social media, because that's what's going to happen when you post consistently. And so a couple notes, I love using Express for a number of these, and there's a couple key things that can stand out. The first is in video hooks. So one of the things you can do in Express is remove background, and then you have all of your Adobe fonts there. And you will notice in my videos and a lot of creators' videos, they sneakily use this to stick fonts behind them while they are talking. So you basically talk over fonts and they're peeking out and around, because this effect is really appealing to the human eye, much like you've seen it in YouTube thumbnails likely. and people love it, and it functions as a good hook, and it is really easy in Adobe Express with all the fonts you're already familiar with, maybe brand kits. Same thing with carousels. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you make a carousel. If you begin to put together a bit of a brand for yourself, what fonts you use, some of the toolkit that you have in terms of different graphic elements that you use to tell stories, or to put a feature on the work you do, saving that into artboards in Express and being able to kind of quickly replicate carousels and work your own way through them. Doing that in a templatized process is an easy way to be able to think about your content. You'll have kind of your key slide types, and you can do that really fast on your phone in Express, again, with all of the toolkit that you already have from your design work in your synced Adobe. And there's a ton of really interesting effects you can do with Firefly to make stuff more interesting in terms of expanding and swapping your backgrounds, using all the kind of modern models, and doing what we call creative carousels. These are really just like showcases of your creative vision, of the beautiful things that you're working on and doing, and people will kind of lose themselves inside the clips and the ideas. There's a lot you can do with Firefly there. You'll see a lot of people go pretty viral with the content where they're someplace and they gradually shift it out with Firefly into being these more intricate environments or create these kind of surreal places for themselves, or the products and things that they're making content about. And I do have homework for you for this, because I do want to encourage every creative person to really think through in this modern era, what do they want? And I would love you to select one of two things to publish on Instagram and TikTok. Make the accounts if you haven't. They can be brand new accounts. So notice you'll get views almost immediately, or it can be on your existing accounts. I would like you to make a quick hit video or a carousel. I'm going to give you some ideas of how to do that. So for the quick hit video, you can do those right within the TikTok and Instagram editor. Add in a couple clips, want to be no more than 7 seconds. Put an idea in there, or something you've been thinking about, or a scenario that's relatable that may have been in there, and some visuals. Have multiple visuals in there in the 6 to 7 seconds. Use the classic font in either interface. Put some audio on it and put a video out there and just see how it does. And I think you'll often be surprised, especially if you're able to tell an interesting story that people may want to read. You think about your kind of font placement and how everything looks on the page, or you're able to give people a list of recommendations or things that they might deem save-worthy, how far that first video might go. If you don't want to do that, then I would dive into making a carousel, even a 2-slide carousel. One of my favorite 2-slide carousel formats is to talk about where you were a few years ago and then where you are now, what's changed, like show a transition between two things, or show like a common thing that people may want to learn about, like the keys to being an art director, things you do every time that you're on a shoot, the lighting kit you have, and kind of present the scenario first of what you're going to educate about. And then on the second and third slide, whatever number you want, actually show a bunch of the elements and key things you think about presented in a nice visual way, and then put that out there. But I would love for everyone watching this to just break the seal and get that first post out there. Don't feel like you have some kind of big weight on your shoulders. No one cares as much as you think they do. It's just about getting into that rhythm of, I start to think about how things move on the internet and how I want to present my creative vision, and understanding these algorithms. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this talk. I talk extensively about this stuff on my YouTube at Oren Meets World, about how creatives can like work in the modern era, how to think about creative strategy, the future of that work, how to just start social basically from zero, how to think about personal brand. If you want to dive deeper, you can definitely check out more there. And thank you so much to Adobe Max for having me.